Your goal is not to launch super high up front. Your goal is to build something over the long term.
It's a one-directional flow of buying and selling straight from the meme coin trench buyers into the pockets of the cabals.
I feel like the laziest way is going to be the way that wins. Welcome back to the Rollup, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Redstone modular oracles are available on 50 plus chains, trusted by over 100 clients and over 6 billion in total value secured. Visit redstone.finance to find out more.
All right, G-Inits, we're at Ethenver's on.
It's a G-Woven now, actually.
G-Woven.
Upgraded.
I've been out of the loop.
Yep.
I think the last time we did that podcast was in person in New York, I think.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
It has.
I'd like to see you in person, though.
It's good to see you guys.
How you
It's
doing?
been a while.
It's good.
You out of the cave?
Yeah.
Back in action.
Yeah,
I didn't make it in
finally out of the bedroom.
No, I mean, I was just at Consensus in Hong Kong, and that was just, I mean, you guys have a lot of people in Asia, so you probably see this dichotomy, but the Asian Consensus Hong Kong trip versus this trip is going to be just so different.
How was it?
It was fun. It's just you're next to what I would consider like maybe not the most ethical or best people, and then also like some of the like most wealthy capital allocators in the world, and they're like all friends, and you like it's just like everything's okay.
It's a cabal.
It's really interesting.
But also in the U.S. and Western side, I would say there's a lot of unethical people too.
Yeah, and there's also this like kind of front that it's like, oh, like, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff hidden behind technicals, if you will, but like they don't really care about technicals.
Have you gotten jaded yet in this market?
Yeah.
I feel like this cycle, as compared to last, we're seeing quite a bit more stuff that is erring on the side of crime. Because everyone's saying crime is legal now, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not legal.
No, I don't think so.
A crime's illegal by definition.
Yeah. So,
But you do see a lot of it.
no, I mean, I'm definitely
And
more
more
definitely
so
jaded.
with like current metas and regulations. It just seems like it's okay. I mean, when
Yeah.
the president of the United States launches a meme coin, and that would have been illegal a day before he takes office, now it's suddenly okay. So it signals to everyone else that it is okay. And along with all the other things that were illegal and are now okay.
I think they're still illegal, but there may be maybe we're okay with it now.
There's no consequences.
I mean, what's your kind of sentiment as a builder then? Because as a speculator, it's like it's obviously dried up right
Yeah.
now, but like as a builder.
I think so. One of the most common feedbacks that we've gotten over the past like 6 months is that we need to be doing more crime, and we've done no crime.
How do you
so far?
Yes.
So, and I think one thing that is really unfortunate in this environment is that if you don't do some of these things that are a little bit more grifty, and everyone is doing it, you're like a zero behind.
Yeah, you lose attention
like-
or you lose whatever.
Even things as simple as like botting followers, right? Yeah. People have like 800,000 followers, which is there's definitely not 800,000 people in crypto. That when you go to an account that actually just has like 120,000 followers, and you just assume that they must be botting too,
yeah, but they're not.
are worse at doing it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I think it really just depends on your time horizon of how long you're building. If you're betting on something to exist over, 5-10 years, then you should be doing things the right way, because your goal is not to launch super high up front. Your goal is to build something over the long term. And so as long as you have conviction in what you're building, I think it is very wise to be ethical. And I think there's a level of trust you can build with your users, your investors, just the people that are seeing your products, that know that you are being like a upfront project.
So despite the community asking you for crime, you're choosing.
Yeah, well
You're
as we
choosing
said, it's illegal.
Right. Okay. And so does that make your community mad?
I wouldn't say it makes them mad.
You're not giving in to all their whims
we don't
and desires.
we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right. So you're choosing to forego a happy-go-lucky community for the moment in order to build a sustainable, more of a longevity play for something that will last 5 to 10. So you anticipate that this wave of crime-loving community will subside in the coming months?
I think maybe not the coming months.
Maybe
but maybe
years.
the next couple years. Well, rotation back to quality. That's what people are saying on Twitter.
Return to fundamentals.
Yeah, inshallah.
But it's going to take a while, I think. Okay, so speed run us through. We sat down 6 months ago. There was maybe 7 to 10 minitias, as we call them, which are effectively app chains.
We've also removed the term Initia.
Yeah, good.
Wait, why good?
It was just hard to kind of grasp, if you will.
And I would just go for Interwoven Rollup.
Yeah, intro.
Initia originally stood for Mini Initia, and I felt that it was limiting, right? I want applications they can care about Initia. They don't have to. It can be bigger than Initia themselves, ideally, or ourselves. And so Interwoven Rollup allows you to be aligned with Initia, with the interwoven word, but still.
Good. Okay, so there were 7 or 10 interwoven rollups. You guys had recently announced some of your framework for the VIP program. So kind of catch us up and our audience. What's the latest on Initia the last couple of months? And I mean, honestly, like when launch, right, is like the question that all of the audience is going to want to know.
Yeah, 100%. So I think since we last talked, there's been around 7 more interwoven rollups. So now we're at around 15 that have been publicly announced. Throughout the past few months, we've really gotten a hold of, I think our core value proposition for these teams and help them also do all sorts of things when it comes to improving their marketing, growing a larger community, but also getting them funding so that they can go out and build without feeling like they're burdened. And so now there's around 26 million that has been put into rollups on the interwoven economy, and then Initia itself has raised 25. And so around 50 million in the entire ecosystem, which I think is quite an awesome number to see that rollups on Initia have raised more than Initia itself. And it's pretty cool signs of initial product market fit, even though we still haven't launched yet. So some of the cooler projects that have recently been announced there's one called Cabal. Cabal is basically a convex-like product on top of Initia VIP. They raised around 2.5 million, I think. There is a chain called Arena. They're building a TE product, so trusted execution environment. They raised around 3.5 from Lightspeed and Paper. And I think last week we also announced a raise for Infinity Ground. They're building like an AI platform. And so a lot of these teams are starting to find PMF, raise a little bit of money, and then going to be launching with us ideally next month.
Cool. And okay, so the interwoven economy is getting started. I don't mean to draw a direct parallel to Berachain, but there are some similarities to proof of liquidity and kind of what you guys are doing. Do you think Berachain launch has been a success so far? And if yes or if no, why? And then do you think similarly that I kind of think that Berachain's launch has proven that you guys are going to do well, but I know it's way different in terms of like how it works. But like, what are your thoughts there around like this idea of proof of liquidity, making apps and the chain kind of aligned? Again, it's a different vision than what you guys have, but like it's signaling to me, I think that what you guys are going to do is going to work well, but maybe you have different thoughts.
Yeah, I think a big proposition that Berachain, us, and some of the new L1s are starting to show is that we care about the applications that are building with us. And value should flow back to the ecosystem. It's a lot, when you look at staking versus incentivizing usage of the ecosystem, you can really think about it as like the US Treasury bond market, right? When you want people to be more conservative, maybe you inflate more, and so you incentivize staking and just locking of assets. But when you want to grow an ecosystem and economy, at first you basically want to have savings rates low, so staking, but incentivize spending and using the economy. And so I think during these initial growth phases, things like Initia VIP and Berachain's POL are really good for just kickstarting usage within the ecosystem. I think Berachain is awesome. I've known Smokey for a long time, so only lovely things to say. I think their launch was great in the sense that, a few things. I think that it was worse than expectations. People thought it was going to launch at like 10, 15 billion. But I think the way the launch went was actually much better for the long-term success of Berachain because it launched at a valuation that was like very reasonable. Like I definitely gig-alonged right when it came out because I thought, surely Berachain's going to go up from here. This is totally not financial advice, but I'm bullish on the ecosystem, and I think once the POL flywheel starts to get going, it's going to be interesting. And finally, we're starting to see people use DeFi again, which is really nice. But when I think some of the things like their pre-deposit vaults, unfortunately, were not exactly a hit because anyone who wanted liquid exposure and size basically deposited into those vaults. And those are supposed to automate using the chain for you to a degree. And so when the chain first launched, if you are actually a DeFi user like I was, and you bridged over to the chain and actually played around, the yields and opportunities were just insane. And so it was really good for actual on-chain users, maybe less good for those pre-deposit vaults. And so I think when it comes to our strategy, I don't think we're going to do anything like pre-deposit vaults. I think base liquidity will be bootstrapped by our enshrined liquidity system on the layer 1. And then through VIP, you'll see people naturally move to layer 2s without having us to pre-incentivize these things.
When you say with VIP, people will move to layer 2s. We mean interwoven rollups. They'll go from the initial L1 into these apps on these rollups and ultimately start to go from rollup to rollup, maybe not ever coming back to the L1?
It's possible. I mean, VIP rewards are emitted on the layer 1. So even if you are a user of these layer 2s, you still claim these assets on the layer 1. But ultimately, what we want to see as a good success metric is revenue that is being generated by layer 2s, but also cross-pollination. Right? We're trying to build this world where you have lots and lots of rollups, but they all play really nicely together, and they all care about the economic benefit of the initial layer 1. But also, since they're interwoven, you want to see people moving from application to application with the frictions and borders being virtually zero, thanks to all the product work and infrastructure work we're doing.
Yeah, layer 0 helps obviously there, and then all the rollups using Celestia helps. It just makes everything very opinionated, as you say.
Yeah,
you're an opinionated guy.
I think having opinions is good if you're building infrastructure, because if you have no opinions and you're this open system that anyone can use with any sort of format, you're going to get in cases where you become stalled, right? Because the way you actually build a multi-chain system is you need people using the same standards.
Yep.
You need people using the same interop, the same trust assumptions on these layer 2s, the same front-end widgets, right? All these sorts of things are needed so that you can have a seamless experience. And the RAS model, that is a lot like a vending machine, doesn't do that. And I think big modularity, I tweeted about this the other day, but big modularity tricked you into believing that what is valuable is being able to choose which DA, Oracle, interop solution you use. But when you talk to developers, nobody cares about those choices. They care about those things just working and giving the real valuable customizations to those teams, which are execution, what type of VM you're using, how you're changing transaction ordering. And I think that's why over the long term, we're going to see this breed of fast chains dying out, because every day there's a new chain that claims they have a larger TPS, right? I think we saw someone announce 1 million TPS last week. What are we going to have next, right? And if every chain is competing just on the fast camp, you're not going to have a value proposition for your product, except for this is really fast. And I think every chain is going to be fast enough within a year or 2 years. So what are you actually altering on your chain to make it unique, to bring users in liquidity, and to build a use case?
Yeah, I like thinking of it as purpose-built is my new favorite term for this. Big modularity also is big on purpose-built chains.
What do you think about full stack app?
I think about full stack customizability or full stack app is it's the right way to frame it for developers and for builders. I think people listening to the Rollup may get it, but some of them may not. I think purpose built is easier to understand. There's a reason why we built this way. It's very normie friendly.
Yeah. Full stack is a thing that's used in Web 2 as well.
But what does full stack mean then? What is a full stack app?
Innovating finance, global, institutional, and on-chain. Deep liquidity to drive capital efficiency. Now maximize yields on institutional grade liquid staking with METH. unlock $1 trillion of capital via Bitcoin. All of this secured by Mantle's treasury of billions in stables and ETH capital pools. This entire ecosystem is coordinated by a vast network of seasoned VCs that are aiming to create the next generation of banking and financial technology. This is Mantle.
Well, a full stack app is an application that vertically integrates into their infrastructure itself, right? And in traditional software engineering, a full stack engineer is someone that does back end and front end code. And so basically you can apply the same principles to blockchains here. You're building your application, but you're also customizing the underlying chain. And so I think full stack app is great. I also think purpose built is great. But I don't know, there's too many of these words and I never know which one to use.
I've had a mental shift recently from a chain-centric view to more of a amorphous state just kind of existing that there's just blobs of state. They're really not necessarily connected to chains anymore. There's bridges, and I think ZK bridging and ZK interop is going to be especially important for this mental model. But I think this idea of a full stack app with proper interop could ultimately play out where we no longer, if I'm a developer or a builder, I no longer need to think about the L1 or L2 or L3 that I'll deploy my application on. I'll deploy it, I'll issue my assets and some business logic and smart contracts on it, and then I'll connect via ZK, and I'll just send my ZK proofs to any chain that can verify that. And that chain that can verify ZK proof can verify the state of my application. And therefore I can interoperate amongst all the other apps that are sending ZK proofs to all.
So what do you think about the UX that comes with that then too? Are you big on chain abstraction?
Mm-hmm. I think chain abstraction is the right way to think about UX and user onboarding. Yeah.
I've been kind of turned off by chain abstraction recently. I don't know if you have.
Tell me why.
Like AI just threw me for a whirl. Like we just have natural language models. I want to deploy capital on Initia L1. I want to have some liquidity staked in a validator and LP in this enshrined liquidity. And I want to participate in these three chains. These three rollups do it for me. And just boom, boom, boom.
Is that not chain abstraction?
That sounds a lot like chain abstraction.
Yes, but like I think that our mental model for chain abstraction was like I'm a user that's going to like not have to change the chain in my.
So who the user is has changed.
It's changed for me. It's like, and I get it. Obviously, if you're using a ledger, right, or you're using a hardware wallet, you're still gonna need to do it. But if there's some like delegated signing process or something, I just feel that. I feel like the laziest way is going to be the way that wins, and like the laziest way is for me just to tell somebody in some sort of agentic thing to kind of do this for me.
Yeah, I think you're right for AI in the sense that we can get AI to do the shit for us. Yeah. I think traditional chain abstraction will also be good from a user perspective because I won't trust AI to do all this for me for probably a while.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think one of the biggest hurdles for chain abstraction is getting the distribution. Right, you basically have to get a lot of these protocols to either integrate you or you have to set up infrastructure everywhere. And that's why I'm kind of bullish on Initia chain abstraction.
Just kind of bullish?
Yeah.
Just kind of?
We already have the distribution, right? We have a product stack that all of the interwoven rollups already use. Yeah. And that means we can just tweak that over time to build a more seamless world. And we don't have to do the BD work on the like, go integrate our front end or our widgets or anything like that. They already do that.
So when we're thinking about the user experience then, and kind of tying this back to the whole like Berachain POL conversation with Initia's enshrined liquidity, one thing that's exciting about your stack is that you have the chain abstraction element in terms of like the initial wallet. I don't know if you guys are calling it that, the initial wallet. You have these interwoven rollups, and then you have the enshrined liquidity, which means that like if I come in to the interwoven ecosystem, I don't really need to leave. Like there isn't much reason for me to leave as long as a user all my needs are met.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, and I think that's a possible future, right? Is that all my application needs are met within this one place. And so if we get there, then what is the reflexivity like in this ecosystem, right? Because one of the best things about DeFi, and specifically DeFi Summer, like was you would ape, and then your friends would ape, and then it would be, the pool 2 token would pump, and then that would make more yield, and then like it was like this very flywheel thing, and then we got like VE tokenomics, and we got voting locks and all these different types of things. So like when we're thinking about the Initia and the Interwoven ecosystem, like what is the right way to think about the reflexivity of this ecosystem, especially from launch, right? Because I think, like, if this thing gets going, then there's a strong reflexive loop here, but maybe you guys have a better understanding of it now as you're closer to launch.
Yeah, so reflexivity is a big word for me, but I'll try my best. I essentially think there's a few things here. There's definitely the Initia L1 and Enshrine liquidity, right? All of those assets are paired with Init. Yeah. And so Init kind of becomes this common denominating token for all things of cross-chain swaps and just liquidity bootstrapping. Mm-hmm. The second is definitely VIP, right? What VIP does is it helps apps incentivize the usages that they care about, and they can define it themselves, right? So you don't need to go to a validator and say, like, we want you to incentivize this, this, and this. Instead, it's about I, as an app developer, think, these 3 things are interesting. I'm going to build a VIP scoring system around that, and then my users are going to be distributed these rewards. And what's really nice about VIP is that it is retention-based. So users don't just get all this money up front. Rather, they have to keep using applications over time to be able to vest these rewards. And as they keep earning or keep using these applications, they'll earn more rewards. And so there's a bit of a flywheel of like, okay, once you've started using one, you're incentivized to keep using it. And then I think what it really does is it builds demand for the init token, which, helps the entire economy, whether that's the L1 Enshrine liquidity or just protocols in general, because I think building demand and use cases is the best way to build like relevance for your token, right? Staking is totally dead. I think staking is like the most boring use case you can ever have. And we've seen that ecosystems with high staking rates have an incredibly hard job of trying to build the ecosystem, because how are you supposed to compete with like 10% yield from staking when, lending on a market is maybe like 3 or 4. Yeah. And so
it's kind of Solana's problem currently with their inflation. It's not a problem, but it's like it's the reason why Ethereum's ETH is used as an asset. ETH DeFi is far better than Solana DeFi, because you can just put Sol on a validator and earn 8% now, where ETH is like 2 or 3.
Yeah, this is also like the notorious problem within Cosmos.
Oh my gosh,
Cosmos chains die.
I mean, Celestia's going through it, right? They're like, we need to lower the inflation. We need to, I think there's one other CIP that they're trying to push through.
It's locked staking.
Yeah, stop that, which you guys are not doing that, right?
So we have, I have had some interesting thoughts lately.
Okay.
So I think staking for locked tokens is bad.
Okay.
Because, those tokens aren't in circulation. But when you think about it, what do you need to do as an L1 when you bootstrap? You need to bootstrap security. Yeah. And security is very hard to bootstrap and get enough stake for. So say your initial float is something like 10, 20%, right? You need to get maybe like 50% of that to come in stake. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by having a really high staking rate.
And you're saying that you're not doing that.
Right? And so
you're saying you don't want to do that.
We do not. I think the most critical thing is have a low staking rate so that we can give a lot more rewards to Initia VIP and people can go use products. So what does that now leave you with?
Yeah, you have a lot of lock supply that needs to contribute to security, but they can't dump on everybody.
I think there's a way that you can do it that is quite fair and is still very positive to the overall ecosystem, which is where you allow unvested tokens to be staked with validators. They get a very nominal interest rate, so something like 1 or 2%. And then all of those rewards are locked and vested just as their original investment. That means you can bootstrap security. You pay a very little amount so that it's not going to affect really too much.
Yeah, the investors are happy,
and
community's happy.
Those tokens are going to be vested, and then you can give a lot more to actually using products in the ecosystem. And so this is something that we've been troubled with for the past few months, but I think ultimately we need to boost the amount of rewards going to Initia VIP and lower the staking rate, and I think that's probably how we're going to do it. What are your thoughts?
VIP is one of the more sophisticated capital allocation mechanisms. I think essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to programmatically and reflexively allocate capital to. It's hard to pronounce. Yeah, to the users, exactly. And so, I think like, the whole Vitalik communism tweet was kind of funny, but like essentially, I guess it was really funny. But what exactly we're trying, like Ethereum is doing this through public retro funding, right? And so they're like more manually and more with voting and governance, they're reallocating those incentives back to the users that way. I think Initia and VIP is doing that programmatically. And I think ultimately what you're saying is, you don't want locked tokens. You don't want people to just save money. That's why inflation exists, and it's a good thing, but you just want to keep it under control. And so I think monetary, and I've said this quite a bit, but monetary velocity is more of an indication of a healthy economy than just having a lot of assets. So right now, ETH has a very slow velocity. You don't see a lot of changing hands, buying, selling things. That's what indicates a healthy economy. That's not really happening on ETH. It is happening on Sol, but it's a one-directional flow of buying and selling straight from the meme coin trench buyers into the pockets of the cabals, right? And then it just sits there. And then you end up over time with just a pool of capital that sits there, and you lose your monetary velocity. So I think, can I say reflexivity one more time? I think in Initia, you guys do a great job of like, okay, you get it, but then you reallocate it programmatically right back. And almost gives me the idea of like programmatic capitalism in action on Initia through VIP amongst all of these interwoven rollups, buying and selling and trading with one another. Those are my thoughts.
It's going to be very interesting to see how VIP plays out, and I think we're going to definitely have to make VIP 2.0 at some point. I think there's a lot of additional buckets that we can allocate to. So right now the VIP rewards are distributed based on the balances of the init token a layer 2 has, as well as a gauge vote on the underlying layer 1. With VIP 2.0, we can start to think about what else is interesting to incentivize here. But it's really hard to do because a lot of things can be gamed, right? Like if you do things like volume, but maybe you have to think about like capital brought in from other ecosystems. You can use that as like vampire attacking. Yep. Amount of cross-pollination between rollups, and everyone wins if the interwoven economy is actually being interwoven. So I think there's a lot of economic play that we can do here, and I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this idea, the investors will be happy. They'll get a little bit of extra yield rather than zero in terms of staking, right? Like if they were not going to be able to get any liquid staking rewards or just very. Yes, exactly. When you were like, oh, the investors aren't going to get any liquid staking rewards, I was like, damn it, Rob, we were just too late to the Cosmos Ponzi, weren't we? And then on the community side,
Rollup Ventures is invested. We are bag holders.
And then I think on the community side, they're just going to be happy that they're not getting dumped on, and that like the chart will actually be healthy.
They're not getting dumped on, and people who actually use applications are going to get so much more, ideally, because we'll be able to reduce staking rewards from something like 40% of the total supply down to maybe like 20 or 25, and boost up VIP from 10 to 25.
And that's enough to offset any kind of slashing.
For sure.
Yeah, and provide enough security. People were so mad about Celestia, but didn't realize that like there needed to be some incentive to have the security, or else like you just can't. Like when all these interwoven rollups go live and Celestia has very little security, it's like, well,
yeah, exactly.
We're all kind of screwed here if something goes wrong. But like that's not the problem anymore. Like there's a sufficient amount of Celestia staked, obviously, and that's been kind of like the topic of why Celestia has really bad sentiment on Twitter as of recently, just because it's been dumped. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, somebody has to be willing to put something at stake, right? If there's a nothing at stake problem, then with DA, you just get the data withholding attack, and then all of a sudden the interwoven economy is under duress. So
yeah.
So Zon, I think there's only one question left to ask.
Initia looking good here.
When?
Yeah, when Zon?
March.
Cool. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it, buddy.